The day my boss told me she had arranged a blind date for me, I thought she was joking. Not the harmless office joke kind, but the kind that makes everyone laugh while you stand there wondering if you are the punchline. It was a rainy Thursday evening. The sky outside the office windows was gray and heavy, and the building lights felt too bright after staring at a computer screen all day. I was packing my files into my bag, ready to leave, when the assistant told me that Miss Carter wanted to see me in her office. That alone was enough to make my stomach tighten. Miss Carter was the kind of boss who made people sit straighter when she walked into a room. She was calm, strict, and extremely professional. She ran Carter Financial like a perfectly built machine. Everything in the company moved with precision, and emotions never seemed to be part of the system. So when I stepped into her office and she leaned back in her chair with her arms folded, I expected a conversation about a project or some numbers from a report. Instead, she looked at me calmly and said something I never expected. "I arranged a blind date for you." For a moment, I honestly believed I had heard her wrong. I stood there in silence, waiting for her to explain the joke, but she did not smile. She simply watched my face like she was studying a reaction during a meeting. "A blind date," she repeated. The most serious woman I had ever met was suddenly acting like a matchmaker. I had been working at Carter Financial for almost 3 years at that point. It was the first stable job I had managed to hold on to after a difficult period in my life. When I was 22, my father passed away after a long illness. The medical bills drained everything we had. My mother moved across the country to live with my aunt because we could not afford to stay together in the same apartment. I stayed behind. For a long time, my life was simple. Work, pay bills, survive. Dating was something other people did, people with time and money. I worked late nights. I took extra assignments. I kept my head down and tried to prove that I deserved my place at the company. Miss Carter never praised employees openly, but she trusted me with important work. That meant more to me than compliments. Which is why the idea of her setting me up on a date felt completely unreal. She reached into a folder and slid a small piece of paper across the desk. On it were only a few words. Saturday. 7 p.m. La Verona. No name, no explanation. I looked up at her. "Who is she?" I asked. For the first time since I had known her, Miss Carter gave a small, mysterious smile. "You will find out soon enough," she said. That was the entire conversation. The next few days at work felt strange. Every time I saw Miss Carter in the hallway, I wondered if she expected me to actually go through with it. Part of me considered ignoring the invitation completely. Blind dates were awkward even under normal conditions. This one felt even stranger. My boss was involved somehow, and I had no idea why. But curiosity can be powerful. By Saturday evening, I found myself standing in front of the mirror in my small apartment, adjusting my tie and wondering what kind of woman would agree to meet a stranger arranged by someone else. La Verona turned out to be exactly the kind of restaurant you see in romantic movies. Soft, golden lights glowed above the tables. Quiet music played in the background. Couples leaned toward each other across candlelit dinners. I felt slightly out of place the moment I walked inside. The host checked the reservation and guided me to a small table near the window. My heart started beating faster as I sat down. Every time the door opened, I glanced up. 10 minutes passed. Then the door opened again, and she walked in. At first, I did not connect her to my boss in any way. She looked nothing like the intimidating executive I worked for every day. Her brown hair fell softly around her shoulders. Her eyes moved carefully around the restaurant like she was searching for someone, but also wondering if she should leave. Then her gaze landed on me. She hesitated for a moment before walking toward the table. When she sat down across from me, she offered a polite smile. "Hi," she said. "You must be Daniel." I nodded slowly. "And you are?" "Emily," she replied. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The situation felt strange for both of us. Then she said something that completely changed everything. My mother insisted on this date. I blinked. "Your mother?" She nodded. "Miss Carter." I nearly dropped my glass of water. The realization hit me instantly. The powerful woman who ran the company had not just arranged a blind date. She had arranged a date between me and her daughter. Suddenly, the evening felt far more complicated. If the date went badly, it could affect my job. If it went well, I had no idea what that would even mean. Emily seemed just as uncomfortable as I was. For the first few minutes, we spoke carefully, like two people walking across thin ice. We talked about simple things first. Work, movies, music. But slowly, something began to change. Emily was not trying to impress anyone. She spoke honestly about her life. About graduating college and still feeling unsure about her future. About trying different jobs that never felt right. She admitted that her mother could be intimidating. That made both of us laugh. The conversation began to feel easier. The tension slowly disappeared. Time passed without us noticing. At one point, Emily glanced around the restaurant and realized most of the tables were empty. We had been talking for hours. But behind her warm smile, there was something else in her eyes. A quiet sadness that appeared whenever the conversation paused. Eventually, she told me why. Her father had died years ago. After that, her mother had buried herself in work. Their home slowly turned into a place of silence. Conversations became short. Personal feelings were rarely shared. Emily said setting up this date was the first personal thing her mother had done in years. Hearing that made me see the situation differently. Maybe this was not about control. Maybe it was about connection. When we finally left the restaurant, the rain had stopped. The city streets reflected the lights from the buildings like tiny stars scattered across the pavement. We walked slowly toward the subway station together. Neither of us seemed ready to say goodbye. There was something peaceful about walking beside her, like two strangers who somehow understood each other's loneliness. When we reached the station entrance, Emily turned toward me. "Thank you for coming tonight," she said softly. "I thought this would be awkward and uncomfortable." "And it wasn't?" I asked. She smiled. "No, it was actually one of the nicest evenings I have had in a long time." I felt the same way. As she disappeared down the subway stairs, I stood there for a moment realizing something unexpected. That strange blind date arranged by my boss might have just changed everything. And I had a feeling the story between Emily, her mother, and me was only beginning. The next Monday at work felt strange in a way I could not explain. I walked into the office expecting something dramatic to happen. Maybe Miss Carter would call me into her office immediately and ask for a full report about the date like it was another business meeting. But nothing happened. The day moved forward like any normal Monday. Phones rang, emails filled my inbox, meetings came and went. Miss Carter passed by my desk once in the afternoon. She gave me the same calm nod she always did, then continued walking down the hallway. No questions. No comments. Nothing. By Tuesday, I began to wonder if maybe Emily had not mentioned the date to her at all. Maybe the whole situation had simply been an unusual moment that everyone decided to forget. But Wednesday afternoon changed that. Around 3 o'clock, my phone rang. It was the front desk. "Miss Carter would like to see you." My heart immediately started beating faster. I straightened my tie as I walked down the hallway toward her office, the same office where the strange blind date had started. When I stepped inside, she was sitting behind her desk, reviewing a stack of documents. She did not speak right away. She finished reading the page in front of her, placed it neatly on the desk, and then looked up at me. Her eyes studied my face carefully, the same way she analyzed financial reports. Then she asked a single question. "Did you enjoy the evening?" Her voice was calm and direct. I decided to answer honestly. "Yes," I said, "I did." She nodded once, very slowly. And for the first time since I had known her, the strong and unshakable Miss Carter looked relieved. It was a small change in her expression, but I noticed it immediately. After a moment of silence, she spoke again. "Emily has been going through a difficult time." Her voice softened slightly when she said her daughter's name. "She has felt lost for several years," she continued. After her father passed away, our home became very quiet. She paused for a moment before continuing. I did not know how to reach her anymore. Hearing my boss speak like that felt strange. I had never heard her talk about personal things before. Then she said something that surprised me even more. I chose you very carefully. I blinked in confusion. Me? She nodded. I needed someone I trusted. She leaned back in her chair slightly. Someone who understands responsibility. Someone who works hard without expecting praise. Someone who treats people with kindness even when no one is watching. I did not know what to say. I have observed you for 3 years, she continued. Your character matters more to me than status or money. The room became very quiet. I believed you were the right person to meet my daughter. For a moment, I could not speak at all. I had always seen myself as an ordinary employee trying to survive. But somehow, she had seen something more. Thank you for going, she said. Then she returned her attention to the documents on her desk, signaling the conversation was finished. As I left her office, my mind was still spinning. That moment changed how I saw Miss Carter. She was not just the strict boss who ran the company like a machine. She was a mother who had been trying to help her daughter in the only way she knew how. Later that evening, my phone buzzed while I was making dinner in my apartment. It was a message from Emily. Hi, Daniel. I hope your week is going well. Seeing her name made me smile immediately. We began texting. At first it was simple conversation, how work was going, what we had been doing during the week. Then Emily asked a question. Did my mom say anything to you at work? I laughed quietly to myself. Yes, I replied. She asked if I enjoyed the date. Emily sent a laughing emoji. That sounds like her. Our conversation continued late into the evening. We talked about everything, childhood memories, favorite places in the city. Music we liked. Talking to her felt easy. Natural. Over the next few weeks, we started seeing each other again. Nothing dramatic. Just simple things. Coffee on Sunday mornings. Walking through the park after dinner. Watching movies and laughing at scenes that were not even meant to be funny. The connection between us grew slowly. It felt real. Like something strong, quietly building over time. Emily began opening up more about her life. She told me how lonely she had felt growing up in a house where emotions were rarely spoken about. Her mother had always loved her, but after losing her husband, she had thrown herself completely into work. The company became her entire world. Emily had spent years feeling invisible, but something began to change. One evening while we were walking through the park, Emily told me she had started having real conversations with her mother again. At first it felt awkward, she admitted. But we are trying. She smiled as she said it. There are a lot of years to make up for. Hearing that made me feel something warm inside my chest. The strange blind date had not just brought Emily and me together. It was slowly bringing her family back together, too. Months passed. Our relationship continued to grow. Emily began exploring new career paths, trying to find something that truly meant something to her. She eventually discovered art therapy, helping children express their emotions through drawing and painting. For the first time since I had known her, she seemed excited about the future. Meanwhile, my career at the company continued moving forward. Miss Carter began trusting me with larger responsibilities. Sometimes during meetings, I would catch her watching me quietly, the same thoughtful look she had the day she arranged the blind date. One evening, Emily and I were sitting together on a bench near the river, watching the city lights reflecting on the water. She rested her head gently on my shoulder. You know something? She said softly. What? That blind date saved more than just our relationship. I turned to look at her. She smiled gently. It helped fix something broken in my family. Hearing those words made me realize something important. None of us had expected that single dinner at La Verona to change so much. But somehow it had. And deep down I had a feeling our story was still leading towards something even bigger. Something none of us could see yet. Months passed after that first strange blind date, and life slowly began to change in ways I never expected. Emily and I continued seeing each other, but nothing about our relationship felt rushed. Everything grew naturally, like something strong taking root deep underground before anyone could see it on the surface. Our dates were simple most of the time. Coffee in the morning before work. Long walks through the park where we talked about everything from childhood memories to the strange fears people carry inside. Sometimes we stayed on the phone late at night, sharing stories about our lives, our dreams, and the things we still hope to become. The more time I spent with Emily, the more I realized how strong she really was. For years she had felt lost. After her father passed away, the house she grew up in had become quiet and distant. Her mother had buried herself in work, and Emily had spent years feeling like she was standing alone in the same room with someone who loved her but did not know how to show it. But that slowly started to change. One evening, Emily called me with excitement in her voice. "I think I finally found something I love," she said. She had started volunteering at a small center that helped children deal with difficult emotions. Many of the kids had gone through hard situations and struggled to talk about their feelings. Emily discovered that art helped them express what words could not. Drawing, painting, simple colors on paper. For the first time in years, she felt like she had a purpose. She decided to train in art therapy. Watching her grow more confident with each passing week was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. At the same time, something else was changing quietly in the background. Emily and her mother had started talking again. Real conversations. At first it was awkward. Years of silence do not disappear overnight. But slowly they began spending more time together. Dinner once a week, phone calls that lasted longer than a few minutes. One night Emily told me something that stayed in my mind for a long time. She asked me how I was feeling, Emily said. "That sounds normal," I replied. Emily shook her head gently. "No, you don't understand. That is the first time she has asked me that in years." Hearing that made me realize how powerful small moments can be. Sometimes one simple question can rebuild a bridge that seemed completely broken. At work, my relationship with Miss Carter also began to change in subtle ways. She was still professional and serious as always, but there was a quiet warmth behind some of our conversations now. She trusted me with more responsibility at the company. Important meetings, larger projects, decisions that affected the future of the business. One afternoon, after a long meeting, she asked me to stay behind. When everyone else had left the room, she closed her folder and looked at me for a moment. "I have noticed something," she said. I waited quietly. My daughter smiles more these days. There was a softness in her voice I had never heard before. "That matters to me," she added. I did not know how to respond to that, but I could see something in her eyes. Gratitude. Life continued moving forward. Emily completed her training and started working with children full-time. Every time she talked about her work, her eyes lit up with excitement. I continued growing in my position at Carter Financial, eventually moving into a leadership role that I never imagined reaching when I first joined the company. But the most important moments were the quiet ones. The evenings when Emily and I walked through the city streets together. The weekends when we visited her mother for dinner. Those dinners slowly became something special. At first, they were slightly formal, almost like business meetings. But over time, the atmosphere changed. The conversations became warmer. Laughter started appearing at the table. One quiet Sunday afternoon, we were sitting together after dinner, drinking tea in Miss Carter's living room. She looked at Emily, and then at me. Her expression was calm, but there was something deeper behind it. "I should tell you something," she said. Emily and I both looked at her. Setting up that blind date was one of the most frightening decisions I have ever made. Emily laughed softly. "Really?" Miss Carter nodded. I had no idea if it would work. I only knew that my daughter deserves someone kind in her life. She paused for a moment. And I believe Daniel was that person. The room became quiet. Then she added something that touched me more than she probably realized. Sometimes the people who carry quiet kindness inside them are the ones who bring light into dark places. I had never thought of myself that way. I had always seen myself as someone who simply worked hard and tried to survive. But hearing those words made me understand something important. The small choices we make every day matter more than we realize. Later that evening, Emily and I walked home together under the soft glow of streetlights. The air was cool and peaceful. She slipped her hand into mine as we walked. "Do you ever think about that first night?" she asked. "The blind date?" She nodded. "All the time," I admitted. We both laughed quietly. It was strange to think that one simple invitation had changed everything. That night at the restaurant had brought two strangers together. But it had also repaired a broken relationship between a mother and her daughter. Emily looked up at the sky for a moment before speaking again. "You know something?" "What?" "If my mom had not taken that risk, we might never have met." I squeezed her hand gently. "And I cannot imagine my life without you now." She smiled at me, the same genuine smile she had given me the first night we met. And in that moment I realized something simple but powerful. Life does not always change through huge dramatic moments. Sometimes it changes through small acts of courage. A quiet decision. A simple invitation. A blind date arranged by someone who only wanted two lonely people to find each other. And sometimes that is enough to change everything.